We have been joined now by the 41st mayor of the city of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa, past president of the United States Conference of Mayors. Antonio just concluded his campaign for governor of California on Tuesday night. And we certainly would have understood if he had chosen not to fly across the country today to join us. Yet those who know Antonio best understand his enduring devotion to friendships, family, and our nation's mayors. Please welcome the Honorable Antonio Villaraigosa to the podium for a tribute to our honoree.
Thank you, Mickey. And as I do every year, I get to present this award. But as I do every year, I like to talk about Mickey for a moment. Because Mickey, to me, best represents what coalition building is all about. The Latino Leaders Award, luncheon, dinners, aren't just an opportunity to acknowledge Latino leaders like most organizations do. They acknowledge people who have opened up the door, people who have built coalitions, people who have been trailblazers, making sure that others get to join at the table of bounty, if you will. And I think what makes Mickey different, he's the one person where everybody has a time out. Everybody, 20 people might not come in a room and they might not like one another, but they all respect and like Mickey. And I just want to acknowledge Mickey Barr, you're right. When Mickey calls, I answer. But also the Latino Leaders Award is all about acknowledging that we're here on the shoulders of others. I was talking to a friend, a former mayor, a couple of minutes ago, and we talked about how some people don't understand that they got here on the shoulders of others. Most of us, and particularly, let's be candid, the women and the mayors of color here, we all know we got here because there was a Civil Rights Act and a Voting Rights Act that opened up the country. We all know that we had to fight to kick down the doors to open up the country. And as President Obama always says, to make us a more perfect union, to make the Founding Fathers' words more than just words, but reality. And I want to acknowledge you, Mickey, because I loved the way from the beginning you acknowledged those leaders who were opening up doors. It wasn't just Latinos, across the board. And I think that's what makes this recognition so special. But tonight, we get to acknowledge Greg Fischer. I first met Greg Fischer, I think it was in 2011. I think that was the year I was president of the Conference of Mayors. And it was a special meeting called right after I had gotten elected. And I don't know, that day I was Debbie Downer or something, and I guess it was about 20 of us, and the speech I gave wasn't up to par. It was a little too, not long. Actually, it wasn't long. Actually, it wasn't long. No, the mayors would have loved that. The mayors would have loved that. No, it wasn't long, but it was a little bit, just wasn't up. And he pulls me to the side, and I didn't know him. I didn't know him at all. He pulls me to the side and he says, "Don't you ever give a speech like that again." He says, "I look up to you. You're our leader. I expect you to lead." And you know what? I never forgot that. I never forgot that. So if you ask why I'm here, Greg Fischer's the other reason why I'm here. And, you know, early on, I saw the talent. In fact, there's a few of you here that over the years, I identified as people that I thought ought to move up in the organization, and I've encouraged them to do that. And from the beginning, I put him on a committee, and we worked together, and he was one of my right hands during the time I was first vice president and president. And as I'd come back, I saw him grow and got to visit him at Louisville. And we're acknowledging him, and I also participate in deciding who gets this award. I've been pushing him for a couple years now. And I'll tell you why. Steve said it. Our president said it really, really well. I mean, think about right now, in these times, when we have someone in the White House dividing us on the head of a pin, when we have the screaming that takes place on both sides, but particularly, you know, in Washington, but on both sides of the aisle. Along comes a mayor talking about a city of compassion. Like nobody was doing that. Nobody was even thinking about. I remember when he told me that, and I'm seeing he's the mayor of Louisville, and it's a blue city, but you know, in a red state, and you know, I'm kind of, you know, be careful here. What are you doing? What are you doing, little brother? And you know, and he just was all into the city of compassion, a city of immigrant inclusion, a city that, like so many of our cities, is the tale of two cities. In his case, in most of our cases, one white and the other of color. And he brought these people together. He brought the Dalai Lama not once or twice, but again and again. He went to visit him just recently. He is a special human being. And now the Conference of Mayors has taken on this notion that we ought to be cities of compassion, cities of inclusion, cities that celebrate our diversity. So I couldn't be prouder to endorse the guy who had admonished me in my first meeting and say to him, you know, how proud you make us. How proud you make us that you have taken this mantle of inclusion and compassion, not just throughout Louisville, but throughout the nation. And as part of that compassion, he has a day of service where maybe 20% of the population, maybe a little higher, I don't recall, but it's a big, little higher, 50% of the population. Are we there? 50% of the population participates in a day of service. I mean, an incredible number. And it speaks to this man, his vision of a city, a state, and a nation where we're coming together around the notion of compassion. Let me acknowledge our Mayor of Compassion, Greg Fischer.
I really appreciate you doing that. You're a good man. In the middle, we can take a quick photo.
You're in the middle? You get to look at my picture.
I like that. Okay.
Is that right here? I'll take it on that. Thank you.
Yep.
There you go.
Thanks, Rick. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to Mickey Ibarra. It has been phenomenal, as many people have said, to see this Latino Leadership Award grow every year. And Mickey, you are the force that keeps this moving. The respect in this room and this country for you is beyond measure. You're a good man. Mickey Ibarra. Mi hermano Antonio Villaraigosa. We've spent a lot of time in the trenches together. So receiving this award with your name on it, it fills my heart. You're a good man, and I really appreciate our friendship. So just a few things to say. You know, many of us, as we journey through life, I think we reflect on where we started, right? I hit the lottery with my parents. They taught me two values growing up, and that's why I'm standing here today as a mayor. And my mom's value was, if you can help somebody, help them. Don't ask what's in it for you. Si usted puede ayudar, do it. My dad's value, treat everybody the same, whether it's Sam the shoeshine man or the president of the biggest company in the country. Treat everybody with the same dignity and the same respect. And I wanted to translate those values to action when I became mayor in 2011. So I said that compassion, compasión, would be our guiding city value. People looked at me really funny, I gotta tell you that. And I felt a little uneasy doing it because people scoffed. They said that's too soft and I should be focused on serious things. Bueno, yo sé que los asuntos de corazón son cosas serias. Y estamos viviendo un tiempo en que se necesita más corazón. So I know that heart and grit build our country. And when you come to los Estados Unidos, our history and our value say that our arms, our hearts are open for you. This is who we are. My in-laws, the parents of my wife, Alexandra Gerasimidis, fled the civil war in Greece after World War II. They had a 3rd and 6th grade education. They never owned a car, so they could put all of their money into their kids' education. In one generation, from 3rd and 6th grade education to a PhD, a professor, and my wife, a doctor. That's the United States of America. That's who we are. And I see this play out over and over in our city, and we see it in our country. When I go to the graduations and see the mothers and fathers from Cuba and Mexico watching their kids are scrubbed, fresh, and looking good, while mom and dad wear old clothes, but clean clothes, and smiles so wide that you think their faces are going to crack wide open with pride for their kids. And my ask to these families is simple. Bring your sisters, bring your brothers, bring your nephews and nieces to our city. The future of our city and our nation will only be as great as the love and compassion that we show to our newest citizens. Pero ahora, estamos viviendo un momento de verdad para nuestro país. We're living in a moment of truth for our country. During the Civil War in America, our country said we would no longer allow the buying and selling of human beings. During the women's suffrage movement, we said women must have the right to vote. And during the civil rights movement, we said that all citizens must possess equal rights. La pregunta ahora es si vamos a normalizar el odio y la separación que ha salido de la Casa Blanca. Or do we turn to love, compassion in a country with liberty and justice for all? I'm so proud of my city, the great city of Louisville, the home of Muhammad Ali. That has embraced a diverse and global future. A city that is fighting against voices of intolerance, a city that very proudly lives the value of compassion, una ciudad compasiva. The voices of intolerance will lose. Demographics is destiny, and anger only leads to more anger. Compassion, inclusion, and interdependence is our destiny. It's easy to see. I see it in the eyes of our dreamers as they walk across our graduation stages. And I see it every night when I look into the eyes of my wife and kiss her good night. Y yo veo en el espíritu de Mickey Ibarra. And I see it in the fierce love of Antonio Villaraigosa. Bueno, tenemos una lucha que luchar en nuestro país. So we got to fight the fight in this country. And the smart money, it's on us here in this room. So thank you so much for this honor. Let's get to work.